5 years, we don't even know how many teams are going to be in the playoff in 5 years, let alone what NIL is going to look like.
We don't know how many teams are in the playoff next year. So, I mean, golly. All right, the ACC. I mean, they had their drama last summer and lasted for quite some time. Seemed to be, at least for now, quiet, but you never know. Power structure. Give me your 4 teams in the ACC who could, although maybe it's just 1 or 2, or maybe can get to the college football playoff, in your opinion.
Okay, I like that. I think it's pretty simple. My top 3 are probably Clemson, SMU, and Miami. And then if I'm going to give you a 4th, I think a sleeper would be Louisville. Clemson, for all the reasons we already know. Cade Klubnik balled out. He had a spectacular season. The last game that we saw him last year was arguably the best game that any quarterback has had against Texas. And he's just continued to put all the tools together. And I really do think that Clemson will be possibly one of the top 4 teams standing, not just being in the college football playoff. I really like SMU. For me, the big thing is, who are their playmakers going to be? You lose a player like Brashard Smith. They bring in Chris Johnson, for all of those Tennessee Titans fans, bring in his son. Maybe he could be that every down back, but I still want to see who is going to be the star back out of the backfield, because Brashard Smith added so much. I think the defense is going to be fine, and they'll be in the mix. Of course, you have to mention Miami, but I just don't know how healthy Carson Beck is and who's he going to be throwing to when you look at all the receivers and star firepower that left from Miami. And then Louisville, if you look at Brom and what he's been able to do with Plummer, Tyler Shuck, and now Miller Moss coming from USC, I mean, he struck gold every single time. And then speaking about star backs, Isaac Brown had a spectacular year as a freshman. So him coming back, they have a lot of question marks in the secondary. They pretty much retooled everything in that defensive back area. Quincy Riley's gone. When you think about pass rushers, Ashton Gelati also gone off to the NFL. But I think those are probably the top 4 teams, just eye test wise. I don't know what you guys feel, but I think those are probably my top 4 in the conference.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about Pitt, and they were undefeated with Eli Holstein last year and winless without him. If Eli Holstein plays, this team is obviously clearly a very tough out. When he doesn't, they weren't. I don't know if they're in that top 4, but they could certainly jump up and bite some people.
They're in top 8 range. I love Cade Bell, the new offensive coordinator, or not so new, second year now. And Eli Holstein and him clicked. Desmond Reed was spectacular out of the backfield for that team. I still remember watching that game being glued, Pitt against West Virginia. The backyard brawl lived up to the hype in every single fashion, every single sense of that brawl and the history that they had. Eli was spectacular last year. At this point last year, fellas, being here at kickoff in Charlotte, we were interviewing Nate Yarnell, and we're like, all right, I guess Nate is the guy. And here comes Eli stealing the job week 1, and then he just took it by the reins. But I do think Pitt can make some noise, but maybe it's just waiting and seeing how they go about it, because to start the season at red hot and then to embarrass Syracuse the way they did, be in the national headlines, and then take a precipitous fall, I just feel like that can carry over and linger into the following season. And because of that, I'm not saying it's going to be a complete blanket of how Pitt is going to play, because I do trust Pat Narduzzi, but I do think because they had that precipitous fall, I want to see how this season is navigated.
Justin, how much of a revelation do you think SMU was for maybe yourself, but for most people in the ACC who didn't quite know what to expect about this team from Texas buying their way in and this and that, and then here they are in the championship game in year 1 and highly competitive and in the playoff? What do you expect from the Mustangs moving forward? And is the rest of the ACC now very well aware of how the Ponies operate?
I think they've been put on notice. You couldn't have asked for a better first year for Rhett Lashley and his bunch. They go from the death penalty to the first year of a 12-team playoff. They're firmly in the mix. They lost the ACC championship game to Clemson. It was a great finish, not the best start by Kevin Jennings, but he still had his team battle all the way back. That Penn State game was super lopsided, but if we're focusing just on the positives of the noise that they made, going undefeated in the conference and just how they were able to win. And I look at some of the games last year, there was some hesitancy when they started off losing that game, or they won the game against Nevada. They lost it early on to BYU. Maybe not their best performance because Preston Stone started it and then Kevin Jennings came out. But I really like the group that Rhett Lashley's put together. He hit the transfer portal hard. He knows the players he wanted to find. Some people called them the mini Miami because of Rhett Lashley's time there. And he found players like the aforementioned Brashard Smith, who was able to make a huge impact. This year, RJ Maryland is going to have to be huge. The tight end got hurt earlier in the season, and that was one of the top targets for Preston Stone at the time, in addition to Kevin Jennings. I think he's going to be one of the top guys. Once again, not sure who's coming out of the backfield. The defense is going to be set, but I think SMU is going to be firmly in the mix. Their schedule, though, it's trickier. They now have to play some of the top teams. Everyone wanted to dissect their schedule and say, well, they didn't play any of the top teams. You can only play based off of all these conferences and just more people being added to the pool. I can't play every team. Now this year, they get a chance to play some of the top teams. They do have a regular season game against Clemson. So maybe the ACC championship game is a rematch. However it shakes out, you're not going to say you're not seeing some of those top teams on the schedule because the Mustangs have to bring it from day one.
By the way, Justin is in the city where they're hosting the ACC Media Days. Appreciate you giving us time today because I know you have a production meeting in less than an hour. How much of a difference would you say the tone is today compared to this time last year when you had 3 or 4 teams that were obviously trying to get out? And maybe they still are, but it did seem to be very, very volatile.
I think it's simmered down. It's not even a storyline. Last year, maybe people were walking on eggshells. You're like, okay, is this the last ACC kickoff that Florida State is going to be at? Maybe Clemson follows suit. We heard all the rumors about other schools wanting to hop into the lawsuit. But right now, honestly, I don't think it's a storyline at all. I haven't even given it much thought. And maybe that's because I'm more on the player side. I'm going to be doing a bunch of reporter interviews in addition to some of the coaches. But yeah, it's probably merely just a footnote. There will be stories written about it, about coming into this season and what the buyout would be, but I'm not paying any attention to it.
I'm curious about your thoughts on NC State. They have CJ Bailey at quarterback, a young guy that they really like. I mean, they see a lot of potential in him. Dave Doran is a really good coach, but the last couple of years have just not gone his way for whatever reason, whether it's injury or transfer portal or all that. Do you see them riding the ship enough to where we can see an NC State that is one of those teams in the ACC that people are afraid of again, because they're classically a headache for most of the teams?
Man, that's a tough one because CJ Bailey showed a lot of promise. He put up numbers that we haven't seen since Phillip Rivers. It was highs and lows. And that's what you'd expect from a true freshman that was thrusted into his first start, I'm pretty sure, was against Clemson at Death Valley. While it wasn't a night game, it's like, wow, you want me to start here for my college career? And we went into last season saying, like, is this the year NC State's finally going to get to double digits? And they didn't have that. This year, they now have a new OC in Kurt Roper. I think the familiarity of having Kurt as the quarterback assistant last year, and now he's still with CJ Bailey, that gives him some familiarity, knowing that CJ doesn't have to relearn a system in addition to cadences. I want to know who the top target's going to be. Probably Justin Jolie. Casey Concepcion has left. It feels like this team has always wanted to run the ball, but they just haven't been able to get any type of progress in that department. So I think that NC State is going to have some opportunity this year, but I'm not going to go out there and make a bold statement to say that this is the year Dave Doran is able to get to double-digit wins, or CJ Bailey is going to be one of the young rising stars. I liked what I saw from CJ Bailey, but I will tell you one thing about NC State. We're going to find out a lot about this team after their first game. Yes, that's what you can say about every single team, but them playing against ECU, knowing that's the same way that they lost against them last season, that is a huge rivalry. NC State, that is a must win. Simple as that. We're going to find out a lot. If they lose that game, people are going to be quick to come after Dave Doran.
Justin, do you think North Carolina can be interesting enough on the field to take any of the spotlight away from the off the field stories?
Keywords on the field, right?
Yeah.
Because we have some interesting storylines off the field. I have no idea what is going to happen at Chapel Hill. There's part of me that says, all right, you have one of the greatest coaches of all time. He's a mastermind, but there's only been a few coaches that have been able to do that, both in the pro and collegiate level, Pete Carroll being one of them. I just don't know how things are going to shake out. I don't know who's going to be playing quarterback for them. I've seen what they've been able to do in the transfer portal, but I still feel like there are a lot of parts that are trying to be put together, and just the college landscape is different. Like, Bill has his resume and track record, but he's in a complete, it's like, all right, if you're a specialist of fish, that doesn't mean you can be able to make steak really well. And right now he's in a completely different department, and he's trying to find the right groceries to put something together. I still think it's going to be like a wait and see approach. I just don't know what's going to go on. But I'll tell you one thing. You said interesting. I'm going to be intrigued. Labor Day, before Labor Day, past Labor Day, all of that. Any primetime game that they have, College Game Day. I know our ACC Huddle crew is going to be out there, hopefully, for a few games. I'm going to be intrigued.
So my question for you is, how important is it for Florida State to be Florida State? How much would that give the conference a boost? Because obviously they have, my God, they've been good forever and ever. And then, of course, they just fell flat last year, the disappointing for the year before that. How much would it give that conference a boost if they could get back to that 9, 10-plus win seasons?
It'd be massive. I looked at their schedule coming into this ACC kickoff. I haven't put a finger on it. I'm still going back on how many wins that I think that they'll be able to accumulate this year, but massive. When you have the brand names that are excelling and thriving, back when Jordan Travis was there not too long ago, it means everything. You need those players and those power makers to thrive for the conference to have a better reputation. Florida State opens up the season against Alabama, against the Crimson Tide. I'm not saying they have to win that game, but there has to be some remote decency or better progress that we saw from last year, a 2-win team. I think Thomas Castellanos is going to be pretty good. Him being reunited with Gus Malzahn, I just don't think that TC's talents were used in the best way when he was at Boston College. We know that it wasn't a pretty ending, but I still want to see who are TC's top targets going to be. But he's a dual threat quarterback. When he was at his peak powers, when we saw some of those explosive games, even when they were in contention against Missouri last year, we know he's a great dual threat quarterback. At times, he was called a diet Kyler Murray. I do think that Florida State needs to thrive for this conference to have a better reputation, in addition to the ACC just winning some of those big games against the SEC or any other conference, so they'd have the reputation to say that, okay, we can once again get multiple teams in the college football playoffs. So handling business against LSU, that'd be Clemson. Obviously, you have Syracuse playing Tennessee. I know that's more of a far fetch. Notre Dame has a couple of good games, and then Florida State handling business, whether it be against Alabama or any other top foes that they play, like Florida.
Justin, as an alum, I look, I'll take diet Kyler Murray. I'll take Timu Kyler Murray. I'll take repurposed robot Kyler Murray. I don't care. They just have to be better than they were. And part of it, I do think, is they let the psychology of the team was all wrapped up in that snub, and they never once from the administration to the coaching staff on down got over it. Even though it was like once the season started, there's nothing you can do about last year anymore, and it just permeated through every decision they made, transfer portal, roster building, all of that, all throughout. And 2-10 is a byproduct of that.
Trust me, I know it was tough for you as an alum working with EJ Manuel. It was tough with him watching those games and the way the season started. I didn't think it was a layup to say, like, hey, you guys were going to beat Georgia Tech. Mm-hmm. But I will say this is rock bottom, or it feels like it. There's only one place to go from here, and it's going to be up. I do think that you guys are going to win more than 2 games. That is for sure. But once again, going back to under center with Thomas Castellanos and seeing some of the reasons why Norvell was really intrigued by him, in addition to reuniting him with Gus Malzahn, is what TC was able to do against you guys when you were going perfect and you had Jordan Travis. That was a close game. Man.
His two best games of his career. The loss that they took, which with not for a face mask penalty at the end of the game, Boston College gets another shot with a ball. And then, of course, the second game last year where TC ran all over him. Two best games in his career against the Seminoles.
Yeah, hands down. And yes, a quarterback isn't going to be the magic wand that fixes all of the losses and the turmoil that happened last season. But you bring in another new coordinator in Tony White, who I'm a firm believer of is going to fix a lot of things. He's really good. I remember him when he was originally in the ACC at Cuse. He runs his 3-3-5 system. He's really solid, has a lot of respect. So it's a lot of change. It's just a matter of time. But I do think that there are going to be plenty of opportunities for you. And I will say one thing. We all know that DJU, we don't have to go down this rabbit hole, is a class act guy. We know what he did at Clemson, and obviously didn't work out in part 2 in the ACC. The offense will look better. Whether it's TC trying to just throw bombs, there will be more explosive plays, because a lot of times it felt like the offense last year was anemic, but that will not be the case this year. I do think that there will be a night and day difference in what the offense does and looks like in addition to producing.
Yeah, and he did an incredible job for Matt Rule in Nebraska. That's a tough loss for Nebraska, despite John Butler taking over, the former Buffalo Bills coach. So is Carson Beck elite or not? And that's my last question for you. And Justin, we do appreciate your time today.
Is he elite? Or when he's playing his best, he's elite. But he's coming off, when he's playing his best, he's elite. It's unfortunate how the career turned out, and I'm not saying like he doesn't still have plenty of opportunities to play elsewhere and thrive in the NFL, but for him to try to complete a Hail Mary at Georgia and then now have Tommy John surgery, he has a great offensive line. I just don't know if the weapons are going to be even remotely close. That offense just did everything last year. Granted, because of the number 1 overall pick in Cam Ward, who was able to just be a magician out there, and he showed it to us in the very first game against Florida. But I do think that he is elite. Carson Beck is a great quarterback, but Tommy John surgery is tough. And there's going to be this learning curve, and he's going to try to do his best to get out there and just feel reps. He seems to be on target, and we're going to be speaking to him in addition to Francis Maui-Noah as well as Cristobal about how things look. But yeah, he's elite when he's healthy.
Man, look forward to your coverage, Justin. Thank you very much. See you soon. Thank you.
Appreciate you, fellas. Thanks again.
Justin Walter.